gon' walk it out and mountains. And
Howard University was founded 150 years ago on March 2nd, 1867. At first a training facility for preachers, the university's founding fathers, in short order, changed its institutional raison d'etre to a university for the education of youth in the liberal arts and sciences. 6 departments were created: normal, collegiate, theological, law, medical, and agriculture. During this period, Howard shone as a beacon of light on a nation still plagued with segregation, lynchings, and the lingering notion of, quote, the inferiority of the Negro.
and we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up. In spite of the ache, we'll rise up. And we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Let us pray. Most gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for what our eyes will see, our ears will hear, our hearts will feel as we celebrate the founding of Howard University. For 150 years, you have made her a beacon of hope and promise of a proud and glorious people. Help us, O God, to sense the significance of this moment, a significance that reaches far beyond this time and this space. In this moment, we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses who now rest from their labors, but who left us a rich legacy. We remember what they achieved. We remember that they often lacked resources, but never a vision. We remember that they made this university great because they had the courage to lead and the will to persevere. They overcame and achieved because they believed that you called them to these grounds not to be served, but to serve. They made a difference because they believed that Howard University was important to a people, to a nation, to the world, and that Howard University was important to you. We come celebrating this great legacy, not to rest upon it, but to be inspired by it. For what you gave to our forebears, you have given to us. Give us now the faith, the audacity to believe that Howard University's greatest moments lie not in our yesterdays, but in our tomorrows. Oh God, let the ideals of truth and service continue to permeate the culture of Howard University. Let our unwavering commitment to academic excellence serve notice to all that the classrooms of Howard University will continue to be wellsprings of intellectual and inspirational resources, forever battling wrong, forever fighting against the narrow-mindedness, ignorance, prejudice, and despair that is settling around us like 1,000 midnights. We will continue to house laboratories where creative minds will use science, technology, and medicine to serve all of humanity. On this special day, may the contributions that our graduates are making in communities across this nation and the global community make us proud and cause us to understand that even after 150 years, you still have a future and you still have a hope for Howard University. You have a future and a hope for each and every one of us. Lead us now, guide us, and strengthen us for the work that is before us. Bless us to do our work so well that when history books are written in future generations, they will write that we honored and respected Howard's rich legacy, proud traditions, and indescribable uniqueness. but may they also write that we made Howard University better. This is our prayer, oh God. May it become our legacy. In your name we pray. Amen.
The President of Howard University, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick.
Good morning. Dean Richardson, I want to first thank you because
For 1 minute, the concerned students of HU Resist are here today to deliver a message. This trip tells us that the administration has a habit of forgetting
no, let's be quiet. Let them speak. Just give me 1 second. We want you to speak.
ways to remind them.
Yeah, we want you to speak.
Asking for too much, we are simply asking that you do right by the university. This too is a part of the legacy of this university.
Sure.
Wayne Frederick, President Wayne Frederick, someone might have convinced you that money is more important than people, but we are asking you in this moment to choose us, to take a stand for us, and to do right by us. That is all that we are asking you to do.
Sure.
The time is always now. Thank you. We have our duty. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other. We must love each other. We have nothing to lose but our day. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Good morning. Howard University is alive and well. I want to express my sincere appreciation for the students who just presented their protests and their words of demonstration. That's what we are about, and I received that fully and with an open heart and mind. So I thank you very much. I certainly consider it a sincere honor to serve as the 17th president of Howard University as we celebrate on this day the 150 years since Congress granted a charter signed by President Andrew Johnson, which resulted in the establishment of this great university. Ladies and gentlemen, on this auspicious occasion, I'm especially excited to share with you our new sesquicentennial logo, one that I believe represents the mosaic that is Howard University. And if you will look on the stage as we lower the logo, the thing I appreciate about Howard University is that we have students, like you just heard, who recognize that the time is always now for us to take action, for us to step in and step up. And I think that that's necessary. I will borrow from President Cheek's 1981 speech, Undoing the Yoke of Bondage in America, and affirm that as we undertake the work of this university in the 150th year of its existence, that we do so with a firm resolve that this university will not be crippled by forces from within, nor deterred by forces from without in pursuit of its mission and its purpose. No matter the occasion or time period, Howard University stands for truth and right. And it is for this reason that I recognize that we are embarking on a period of uncertainty concerning our nation's destiny. In the face of adversity, I challenge us to be slow to give or take offense towards one another as Howard University family, and to remember that we must always be careful with our words and with our actions, because once they are said, they can only be forgiven, not forgotten. I recognize that the gravity of our nation's politics has created an undeniable feeling of angst among us all. But I am inspired that Howard University has always combated injustices by maintaining our commitment to our motto, truth and service. And over the past decade, we've certainly seen that in many, many disciplines. President Mordecai Wyatt Johnson, the first African-American president of Howard University, began his tenure 3 years before the United States suffered from arguably the worst depression in history. During this time, President Hoover was struggling to restore the nation's economy. Benito Mussolini was planning a new empire of the Caesars, and Adolf Hitler was laying the groundwork for the empire of the master race, yet similar to now, Howard needed to progress forward. At the end of his tenure, President Johnson could have said, Howard University, I founded brick and left it marble. He was considered one of the most dynamic presidents to lead this institution, a builder of faculties and of buildings. After serving some 34 years, he served longer than any other president in our history. However, his tenure was not without scrutiny. He was recognized as a controversial figure throughout his entire administration because he knew what he wanted for Howard and was stubbornly determined to have his own way. His years in office were both years of progress and of great dissension. I know that Howard University of 2017 is a result of an inherent labor of love from students, faculty, administrators, and staff who were committed to collective responsibility and to guarantee equal rights and access to education for all. In alignment with this long-standing goal, there are things that our administration will begin to put in place to ensure that we can secure that feature for every student who comes to Howard University. During our board meetings over the next couple of days, I will ask the board to approve a 3-year degree track for Howard University students so that 25% of the course that currently exists could be removed, providing a 10% discount for families with 2 or more siblings who are enrolled simultaneously. I will ask the board to allow students to pay one price for taking 42 credits over the course of the fall, spring, and summer semesters towards their degree completion. Howard University has and always will continue to remain at the forefront of answering the call to address the nation's challenges. And the achievements of the 150 years do not only warrant a reason for celebration, but it is an undeniable testament to what happens at this magical place known as the Hilltop. It is proof that the words truth and service have a resounding effect on persons both within and outside these gates. And although I believe that this institution provides an experience for every person that sets foot on the campus and exposes them to some of the most diverse opportunities this world has to offer, I cannot deny that there is an unparalleled uniqueness that protects, supports, and loves like no other place I have ever been. And for that reason and others, I am adamant that we will not compromise our values. Rather, we will boldly affirm who we are and what we stand for while committing real action. We will not stand idly by and condone misogyny, xenophobia, or racist rhetoric. Rather, we will remain vigilant and organize accordingly. We will not ignore the anxiety, fear, and angst felt by members of our community, as you just heard. Rather, during these times of uncertainty, we must stay informed, lean on one another for support, and remain engaged. And I'll go off script here just to mention a couple of things. I instructed my team to make sure that a wireless mic was available so that we could hear from anybody who wanted to protest or wanted to speak up. And I will still invite anyone who wants to be heard today at any time to take us up on that opportunity. We are a community where we all have something to say, we all have a voice, and we must all speak to that voice. Over the course of the past 6 months, we've had an engagement with a political cycle that certainly has brought the fractures that exist in this nation to the forefront. And it certainly has brought us to this point in our history where, as a university, we have to be clear what is in everybody's hearts and in everybody's minds. And I'll share with you what's in mine. Howard University has been tied to the federal government from its inception. The United States of America and the world at large has benefited tremendously from that connection. The return on investment is untold. However, if the university does not exist one more day because our principles are compromised in any way, shape, or form from that support, I would not shed a tear. But what I would say is if it does not exist another day because we refuse to engage and have conversation and direct people about who we are and what we are and how we can benefit, I certainly would shed many a tear because that is not the Howard way. I want to be absolutely clear that I acknowledge and understand the hurt that some of the rhetoric has certainly caused. I understand the hurt that some of the executive orders have certainly arose in many of us. But the one thing we must be clear about is we must define who our enemy is and not get confused that because we can't reach our enemy on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, if you feel that is your enemy, that we must not put each other in the way of that enemy. I think that that is wrong. And I also don't think the enemy is obvious to who we think the enemy is. I think we make assumptions about what we see, and we must remind each other about what the reality is. President Obama came here and spoke for commencement, and I think we would all agree in this room that he set a high standard for how he conducted himself in the presidency. But I would remind you that in the primary, he was very adamant that marriage was between a man and a woman. And he was the president who signed the Same-Sex Marriage Act. A president who grew, who understood, who engaged with people who had a different point of view and changed his mind. And so we must be prayerful that through that same engagement, we will get there. I attended the White House and interacted with Secretary DeVos. I was not part of the meetings with the vice president or the other HBCU presidents. However, I want to be absolutely clear that I think every opportunity we get to make our case about who we are, what we would do, and how we would exercise the talents that we have, we must do. When the Secretary of Education came to the university, she interacted with an elementary education student who was in her senior year, about to graduate, and is teaching in a public elementary school in the city. And I have to tell you, I've witnessed a lot of things as president, and that was probably one of the greatest things I've witnessed. She got to put on display why public schools in this country are critical to our success. She had an opportunity to explain why she would graduate from Howard University and choose a career as an elementary school teacher, and why any actions that the Secretary of Education must take between now and then must be actions that preserve and allow her abilities to be expressed. And I think if we can continue to do that and educate the people who set policy in this country, we must. We have a responsibility to do that. And lastly, if we don't do it, I want to be very clear to you that very few other people will. People look to Howard University to lead, and we will lead. And we must lead, and we must be uncompromising about those principles. For that, I'm clear. On a personal note, I also want to be absolutely clear that this is a campus of diverse views and opinions. And every single one who has an opinion and a view must be respected. We have college Republicans on our campus, one of whom has been the subject of a lot of discrimination, and we had to move her out of one dorm to another because of what was said to her. That is not the Howard University that I met in 1988, and it's not the Howard University that I intend to leave. So I want to be absolutely clear that whether or not we disagree, we must do so in an agreeable fashion. Whether we are in the classroom, we're in a small discussion, or we're here at convocation, we must take every opportunity to hear every voice and to make sure we do that with the right tone and tenor. Howard University has and will always be unique in its undertaking, yet, as you heard just a little while ago, there is never time in the future in which we will work our salvation, and the challenge is in this moment because the time is always now. Thank you.
Good morning. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I welcome you to the 150th Charter Day Convocation here at Howard University. This is truly a historical milestone for us. From our initial charter in March 2nd, 1867, from humble beginnings as an institution that was established to educate the sons and daughters of newly freed slaves in a single frame building. We've grown to a 250-acre campus with over 90 buildings. From that first graduating class of 8 in 1870 to our most recent 216 graduating class of over 2,000, we have awarded more than 100,000 degrees. We are a mosaic of diversity. As a sacred institution, Howard University has always been a haven and a viable platform for the freedom of expression and freedom of speech, where commonalities and differences have been encouraged and respected. This is what I remember most about my time here when I was a student. In my view, this is what makes us so unique and resilient. This has allowed us to remain true to our historic mission. And while we've encouraged vigorous debates, those debates have always been conducted with the appropriate tone and tenor in a non-threatening manner. Now, unfortunately, today's topical debate has deteriorated into incidents of defacing university property and personal attacks. These attacks have been manifest by graffiti and signs claiming that the president is an overseer of the Trump plantation. These signs and graffitis have claimed that the President Frederick does not care about black people. I will remind you that our president is a very effective president who's doing an excellent job. This board has done a lot of great things, but the best thing we've done thus far was select him as the 17th president of Howard University. Dr. Frederick decided to pursue his education at Howard and work here for the love of this institution and the university committee. And while he had other opportunities, he chose to come to Howard University Hospital, to care for predominantly African American patients, and to train and share his considerable surgical skills with African American doctors. These personal attacks on him are untrue, unfair, and I feel disrespectful. and that behavior is not welcome on our campus. We are a community committed to progressive mobility. Our university has witnessed tough times, and we've always been guided by our core values of truth, excellence, leadership, and service. For the past 150 years, Howard has endured through the era of Reconstruction, the era of Jim Crow, World War I, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, and the list goes on. We have prevailed to see our first African-American president, Barack Obama. We have prevailed through adversity, social economic challenges, and systemic racism. Howard University has persevered and developed some of the brightest minds which have truly shaped the course of American and world history. In the words of James Baldwin, the time is always now. The time is always now to shape history, to tell our story, to reach historic heights, to dream big, and to break down barriers. To the students, the faculty, staff, alumni, and donors, you are the fabric of what makes this university one of the greatest institutions founded on American soil. Over the next 2 days, we will reflect on our past, celebrate our present, and embrace the future as we look forward to another 150 years. So now, without further delay, let me introduce our extraordinary convocation speaker, Mark Mason. Mark is the corporate chairman of this year's Charter Day celebration. He's the son of Howard University, my fellow board member, and a friend for a number of years. Mark earned his business degree from Howard University, where he graduated with honors and received his MBA from Harvard B School. He's passionate about Howard, dedicates so much of his time, treasure, and business knowledge to the university. And when he's not working for Howard, he serves as Chief Financial Officer of Citi's Institutional Clients Groups, managing $34 billion in revenues and over $1.3 trillion in assets. Prior to serving as CFO, Mark was CEO of Citi Private Bank, and prior to that, he was CEO of Citi Holdings. We are truly fortunate to have Mark, a proud product of Howard University, as our Charter Day speaker. So please give Mark a great Howard reception.
Thank you, President Frederick, Mr. Chairman, my fellow trustees of the board, faculty, students, and members of the community. Listening to that introduction, I couldn't help but look at my wife and my daughter Chloe and my son Mark, and I could tell you what they were thinking. They were thinking, when do we get to meet the guy they just described? I want to thank my family for being here today and for their undying and unwavering love and support. It's an absolute honor to be speaking to you all on the 150th year of our founding. It's a special feeling because there's no place like home. But make no mistake, I would not be here if not for the grace of God. When I was here for our graduation ceremony last year, I watched as we awarded an honorary degree to President Barack Obama. it occurred to me that Howard University was born out of the same forces that brought us our first black president. A country eager to move forward from a war, an opportunity to fulfill its promise of equality, and a people filled with hope and a thirst for change. In each generation since, Howard has been both timeless and very in tune with the times, constantly answering the central two questions of where we're going as a people and who we are as a nation. What started with providing an education for free men and women returning from the war soon became the epicenter of black education, or as author Ta-Nehisi Coates puts it, the beacon point for the entire black diaspora around the world. In the 50s and 60s, Howard was, as my friend Vernon Jordan called it, the West Point of the civil rights movement. Having already produced future Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, Howard also produced civil rights icons like James Farmer, who pushed for nonviolent protests to dismantle segregation, freedom riders like 19-year-old Dion Diamond, a Howard physics major, and a young philosophy major by the name of Stokely Carmichael, who brought us the concept of Black Power. It also produced author Toni Morrison, who would rise to fame years later with novels that chronicled the pain of our collective experiences. In the 80s and 90s, Howard was the place where Black Power began to inhabit a fuller definition of power. Yes, we fought in the courtrooms, but we branched out and began to exert our power in boardrooms and operating rooms, in city halls and ivory towers. My generation produced a young man named Raz. As I remember, Raz was always leading a student protest. Later on, feeling that he could tackle a wider breadth of injustices, Raz transformed his activism to organizing coalitions in Newark City Hall. Raz is now, of course, the Honorable Raz Baraka, mayor of Newark, New Jersey. There was another student named Kasim. While I was busy raising funds from corporations as president of the School of Business, Kasim had figured out another path to making a meaningful impact as a student trustee. He understood the significance of the board back then and is one of our longest serving and most influential trustees today. I refer, of course, to my Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity brother and fellow trustee, the Honorable Kasim Reed, Mayor of Atlanta. And there was one of my best friends from high school and roommates here at Howard who could be found lounging on campus in Blackburn, reading the dictionary for fun, or occasionally writing for the Hilltop. He too was an activist on campus. We lived in constant intellectual debate on the impact of protesting versus full engagement with those of different views. Even today, we debate the current state of affairs and how to make the most meaningful impact with those who stand in blatant opposition of our fundamental values. I am referring to writer, author, and educator William Jelani Cobb. My time here also coincided with a woman named Christina Swarns, who is now with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And just about a week ago, she followed in the footsteps of Constance Baker Motley as one of the few African-American women to ever argue and win a case before the Supreme Court. By the time I arrived here, there was one student who had just returned home to California to go to law school. But just this year, she came back to DC to work, Senator Kamala Harris. The list from my generation goes on and on with the likes of Dr. Wayne Frederick, Taraji P. Henson, and a whole host of other hidden figures and distinguished alumni of that time. I will not call the full roll from my generation or those of the past, or we would be here all day. But speaking for my generation, I will say that it was a soul-stirring time. From the dorms and dining halls, we watched Nelson Mandela released from prison. In my last semester, we listened to Public Enemy perform from this very stage, reminding us to bring the noise and fight the power. And today, Howard takes on a new relevance. Howard has always meant something different in each generation, while at the same time representing something timeless, the need to advance, the commitment to excellence in truth and service. Whether people like to admit it, Howard is our de facto 40 acres and a mule. That is, there was a promise that was made in early 1865, reneged on later in 1865, and never kept. But in 1867, we were given this campus and the tools we needed to succeed and make a living for ourselves, an education. If you do the work, fully engage, this place will keep the promise that was broken. In thinking about Howard's journey, I couldn't help but think of my own. My mother raised me and my younger brother Anthony, also a Howard alum, in Queens, New York. My parents were married but separated when we were very young. And though my father wasn't around, we had lots of family support. Grandparents, aunts, and uncles. My mother ensured that there was a village. She instilled 4 important values in my brother and me. 1, faith in God. And I promise you, if I talk to my mother any night after 8 o'clock, she will say, don't forget to say your prayers. The importance of family, the value of an education. I come from one of those families where you had to do twice as much as the next kid just to get as far. And with hard work, anything is possible. Anything is possible. We were brainwashed as children, okay? We were convinced that we could do anything. And I believed it. 4 important principles that my wife Carolyn and I try to instill in our children today. My maternal grandfather was from St. Croix. He owned a carpentry business in Queens. And my paternal grandfather was from Emporia, Virginia. He owned a landscaping service. From an early age, my mother sent me out to work with both of them. I rotated summers. It was a form of cheap labor for them and childcare for her. Right? But this is where I established my work ethic, and I grew to appreciate the correlation between hard work, achievement, and of course, money. I learned many life lessons from, for me, who were larger than life figures. They would remind me that our family name was on the truck. My grandfather, who was a carpenter, had 4 sons, and he trained each of his sons to specialize in something. One was a plumber, one was an electrician, another one was a painter. And his theory was, if I can teach you how to do something that allows you to sustain yourself, then I have done the best thing I could do for my children. Thank you. My other grandfather ran Mason Landscaping, and he had a slightly different approach. So I went to work with him when I was probably about 13 or 14 years old. I made a trade from one grandfather to the other. It was a money trade. One was paying me more, landscaping was paying more than carpentry. I started very young on the trading thing. But what he did was he said, you got to start in the back. Okay, you start in the back, you start in the beds, you weed the beds. Once you figure that out, you cultivate the dirt. Maybe I'll let you cut the lawn in the back. If you get really good, you can use the blower, right? And then when you have mastered that, you can cut the front lawn. Now, this was a big deal for him, mostly for him. But I was on the fast track. You know, I wanted to get there really, really quickly. And shortly through the first summer, I'd made it to the front lawn. And he said, okay, have at it. And I cut the front lawn, and I went down, and I made my strip, and I came back and finished and pulled him over. Let's load the truck. Let's go, Pop. He said, what does it say on the truck? It's Mason Landscaping. I said, what's your name? Mark Mason. He said, look at that lawn. And I looked at the lawn, and I had noticed it until that point, but I had not overlapped when I came back on my mow. And there were like strips of mohawks through the lawn. And he grabbed me by the arm, and he took me back to the truck, and he said, your name is on that truck. Everything that you do in life will be a reflection on this family. It stuck with me. My kids hate when I tell the story. Like, Dad, we can tell the story. We're not even sure it was a truck. Like, it looks like a van in the old pictures. I mean, they, you know. It was a truck. It was a blue truck. They also both insisted on being addressed with a respectful salutation by their mostly white customers. Mr. was in front of the last name, or you would get no response. Now, today, this may seem like something minor, but for that generation, it was everything. They demanded respect and were uncompromising about it. Both of my grandfathers were filled with pride and were examples of work ethic. These examples serve to this day as such valuable lessons. Ultimately, in everything you do, your name is on it. And to the students here today, when you graduate, Howard's name is going to be on you. And you want to bring both pride. My mother was committed to ensuring we had the best education she could provide. So when she decided that the schools in Jamaica, Queens weren't right for my brother and me, she registered us under my godmother's address, and we traveled nearly 2 hours to get to school. Now, for the legal minds in here, my wife included, I trust that the statute of limitations on that offense has run its course. And if not, I'm going to be calling Christina Swarns. I boarded those buses each day carrying a Samsonite briefcase that I stole from my Uncle Arnold. Now, in the briefcase was the autobiography of Malcolm X, which he gave me when I was like 11, and no 11-year-old wants to read a 500-page book, but I carried it with me. Baseball cards and candy. After school at lunch, I sold baseball cards, I sold candy. That was my way of making money, right? See, lack of money made money a focus for me very early in life. My mother, on the other hand, was focused on me going to college. And despite the fact that she hadn't yet gone herself, this was a non-negotiable. My paternal grandmother grew up in Harlem. And despite not having gone to college, she was smart as a whip, a voracious reader, and had learned of Howard and would talk about it being the Mecca and about the medical school. She wanted me to be a doctor. She wanted me to cure her arthritis. God, I can tell you the stories about the pain caused from arthritis. After one visit to Howard with high school friends, Sherman Brown, and whose parents went to Howard, and Jelani, I was sold. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. The history, the leadership, the energy on campus. I mean, energy was crazy. Like energy, kids, close your ears. Energy is code for the ladies. Right? The energy on campus was crazy, right? I arrived, thank you, honey. I didn't know her then. I arrived in 1987 with very little money, some student loans, and a self-inflicted commitment to my mother that I would have a 3.2 GPA or I was coming home. Jelani, Sherman, we shared a one bedroom or one room in Drew Hall on the 5th floor, okay? So you do the math. You got freshman, no credits, Drew Hall, 3 guys, plus, 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 equals no energy. 0, no energy, right? But I was focused. I got a job at the front desk at Drew Hall, working Friday and Saturday nights from midnight to 8. Party time, midnight to 8. I was determined to avoid the distractions that might come along with the energy. All right. I got a second job at the Small Business Development Center, and the focus paid off. I later secured a trustee scholarship, helped me to relieve a little bit of the financial burden on my mom, gave me a little bit of extra money in case I wanted to indulge in a little bit of energy. Howard opened our eyes. I had come instructed to find a cure for arthritis. And you all know at Howard, you can study from cradle to grave. I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I probably could have found a major. But Sherman's dad would often take us to dinner when he was in town. He was an entrepreneur. He'd talk about business, and yes, he'd talk about money, its importance, and how to use it. Because of him, I switched my focus to accounting, ultimately to finance, in the School of B. I took classes with Professor Dr. Barron Harvey, Dr. Philip Fanara. The rigor of those classes, the case study method, the time they invested in me, my own desire to compete, combined with the reassured confidence from a newly learned appreciation of our heritage, all prepared me well to succeed on Wall Street, in business school, at the other HU, and in life. I would not have been nearly as prepared to succeed in life if it weren't for the professors here at Howard University. And I remain deeply indebted to them for that. And so as other classmates took their activism and the Howard name to city halls and ivory towers and corporations and major newspapers, I was taking it to Wall Street. After 30-plus interviews, I landed a position in municipal finance at Goldman Sachs. 2 years later, after cutting my teeth in one of the most coveted Wall Street firms, I applied and was accepted to Harvard Business School in Boston, well prepared to swim with the sharks. It's a great experience, lifelong relationships, not a lot of energy. I'm just saying, right? I mean, as you heard Chairman Mobley speak and describe my background, after a couple stops in between business school, I now serve as a senior executive at Citi, a global financial services firm with 200-plus years of history and a leadership with a renewed commitment to diversity. A firm where Howard is now one of our core schools for recruiting talent. I've truly been blessed. I've had an amazing ride, working for CEOs, with CEOs, and as a CEO, starting businesses, building businesses, selling businesses, and unwinding businesses through periods of growth and through periods of financial crises. And I've lived to talk about it. As I look back on my career, and especially the past 16-plus years at Citi, a couple of things ring true. One, there really is no substitute for hard work, something I learned very, very young in age and has stuck with me. No one individual can do it alone. There's power in the team, there's power in mentors, there's power in the village. Sometimes you need to listen in order to be heard. I'm known to speak truth to power, but I listen first and more than I speak. The most insightful person in the room is the one who can see the big picture, which is almost always beyond your own point of view. And pick your battles selectively, but never stand down from those you deem ultimately worth fighting. Howard brought me to the world of business and finance, and my success in that world has brought me back to Howard as a trustee. Standing here today feels like a wonderful full circle, but it also feels like an incomplete journey. As President Obama has said, as it has for more than 2 centuries, progress will come in fits and starts. It's not always a straight line. It's not always a smooth path, nor has it been for Howard. At our 125th convocation, when I sat where you were sitting today, Governor L. Douglas Wilder emphasized that giving back is one thing, but perpetuating a legacy and refurbishing a trust is quite another. I became a trustee to help perpetuate a legacy that began long before I arrived here and will continue long after we all leave here. As a trustee, there are times when we had to ask, do we have the resources and the structure to fulfill our mission? And we had to answer, no. It is my job to make sure that we do for generations to come what we've done for generations in the past, provide a meaningful and robust education for Black students. I will not be able to fulfill my grandmother's wish that I cure arthritis. And as proud as she was of me, she was probably a little disappointed. But I see my job as ensuring that one of you, or the students who follow you, will. You can take your fight not just to courtrooms and boardrooms, but to science labs and Silicon Valley. You can still make a difference and choose from a broader variety of career and life choices. You and generations that follow you will be able to make laws, cure cancer, write bestsellers, start companies, and be the first president that doesn't end his or her career with an honorary degree from Howard, but one who begins his or her career with a degree from Howard. That depends on each of you, yes, but it also depends on the university's leadership. Choosing that leadership is the most important thing that a board does. I believe that what makes for a great leader is an ability to bridge the divide between our rich history and our destiny. When it was time to choose a new president to lead our university, it was clear to the Board of Trustees unanimously that Dr. Frederick, a triple Howard grad, was a transformative leader who bleeds Howard red and blue. Dr. Frederick was and is the right man for the job at the right time. He is as exact in the execution of his vision for Howard as he is with a scalpel in the operating room. He's stabilized the leadership, united the board, has made some tough financial decisions, and he focuses on and engages with the student, faculty, and alumni in ways not always seen. He is unwavering in his commitment to the university and all that it stands for. I can think of no one better to lead this university on our march from history to destiny. I think we would all do well to recognize that the job of president means you never get to make an easy decision. Easy decisions are made long before they get to your desk. These are difficult times for our country and for all of us. There is anger, hurt, and confusion in all of us. And we must find a way to move forward together, all of us. And all of us, students, faculty, administrator, and alums, must look beyond the next 4 years and to the next 40 years. I do not claim to have the answers for the unrest that's at our school, the unrest that's in our hearts right now. But I do know that at times like this, it is worth remembering that though we may differ on tactics, we do not differ on goals. And yes, we can alter tactics without altering our moral clarity. So yes, we protest, hopefully with demands rooted in a deep understanding of real facts versus alternative facts. But we must also propose different ideas because as the educated, we must also be the educators. We can hold each other's feet to the fire without binding those feet in a way that prevents us from moving forward. It's okay to disturb unjust peace, but we must find ways to be creators of a just one. Howard's cause is America's cause. This is the incubator that nurses America's conscience. It is the vessel that holds America's promise. It has been this way for 150 years. It is my duty, it is your duty, it is our duty to lay our reputations on the line for it, to put our names on it, and to bring it honor when it puts its name upon all of us. Congratulations, Howard, and thank you.
The Howard University Choir will now perform I've Just Come from the Fountain, arranged by Andre Thomas, Kahembe Eichelberger, mezzo-soprano soloist.
Backslider, do you know him? Do you know the man from Galilee? Backslider,
the rose of Sharon, mighty counselor, King Jesus' son.
Backslider, do you know him? Drinking from the fountain, backslider.
from the fountain, drinking. I've been drinking from the fountain. His name so sweet. I've just come from the fountain. I've just come from the fountain, Lord. I've just come from the fountain. His name so sweet. His name so sweet. I just come from the Lord, my Lord.
The closing remarks and benediction.
First, let me take an opportunity to let's give another round of applause for our orator, Mark Mason. And first, I'd like to acknowledge my wife, Simone Frederick, who's here, and I want to just I came here in 1988, Simone. This was a year after Mark, so there wasn't that energy when I got here. Kasim and Mark took all the energy, so. But I'll talk to you about that later, Cookie. It's a different kind of energy, all books energy. I'd like to acknowledge a few individuals who are here. Let me start first with Dr. Taft Broom, the chair of the Howard University Faculty Senate. Mr. Charles Prince, the president of the Howard University Staff Organization. Ms. Nadia Pinto, the president of the Howard University Alumni Association. I think there are a few alum in the crowd. I don't think she's here, but I want to acknowledge Ms. Allison Carpenter, the president of the Howard University Student Association. The members of our distinguished faculty, thank you for all that you do. The staff of Howard University. The students of Howard University. And I especially want to give a shout out to the students who were here protesting, because that's what Howard University is about. And we can do that respectfully, and I think that's important. The alumni of Howard University, I think a few alum are here. There are a few guests I want to acknowledge that are extremely special to us, and that is the future sons and daughters of Howard from the School of Early Education, Early Program. You guys want to stand up so we can acknowledge you? Every time I see these kids, I wonder how their parents get them to sit through these events. And their parents aren't even here. That's the amazing thing. I feel like I missed that class when I had my kids. The University Singers Orchestra and Dr. Poole. We have a few special guests here. The Honorable Rashawn Baker, one of our distinguished alum, Prince George's County Executive. Thank you for coming out, showing your support. We have a very, very special guest. As you know, Howard University is named after its third university president, who was one of its founders, Oliver Otis Howard. And we hunted down some extended generational descendants, and here to represent Mr. Howard's family is Mr. Gary and Mrs. Joan Howard. If you would stand and let's recognize you. Thank you very much for coming. An abolitionist with a vision. We appreciate you very much. Ms. Baskerville from NAFIO is here. I think I saw you earlier. Thank you for coming out. The Honorable Isaiah Leggett, the Montgomery County Executive. And we'll see him as well at our events this evening. We have the district surrounded. So we just got to get the governorship again in Virginia, and we'll be okay. Don't tell anybody else I said that. I can see that as a campaign slogan right now. I can see a Howard grad writing that right now. Susan Malvo is here, and she is here as well with her father, former Dean and Vice President, Dean of the Medical School and Vice President for Health Sciences, Dr. Floyd Malvo. Thank you for joining us. I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge Trustee Mason's family because, as you can tell, one of his 4 principles was about putting family first, and a lot of his remarks surrounded his family. But I know what drives him today is his current immediate family that he is growing. And so I want to acknowledge Miss Chloe Mason, Miss Carolyn Mason, and Master Mark Mason, Jr. And for the young ones, you learn very quickly. All Howard alum talk about energy indeed. I give you the true story. Mrs. Joan Mobley, the wife of our chairman. If you could. Drs. Michael and Judith Winson, thanks for coming out. This is always an emotional opportunity for me because it is not often I get to do this, and every time I do it, I'm not sure if it's the last time that I will do it. So I want to acknowledge again Dr. LaSalle Lafall, my mentor. Dr. Lafall came here in 1948 and is entering his 60th year being at Howard University. We were having a conversation about whether or not he's the longest serving faculty member. And somebody else sent me an email recently, Dr. LaForce, so we've got a couple of people pushing you. And we enjoy that. For all the former officers of the university, if you can stand so that we can acknowledge you. I see former provost, I see Ralph Bunn, Center Director, Dr. Howard Dudson. I think Trustee Mason's delivery was stirring. There's no doubt about it. Howard put something in all of us that is extremely special, and for that we have to be appreciative. But I'm also appreciative of the fact that we also have people who come to Howard who have not had anything to do with Howard and decide to support Howard, and for that we must always be grateful. And the Board of Trustees here at the university certainly supports that. And so I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the Board of Trustees, many of whom have never attended Howard, had a sibling who attended Howard, but every single time I speak to a new member of the Board of Trustees, they talk about the fact of how Howard University is important and means so much to them, despite the fact that they don't have a direct connection. So I want to acknowledge the Board of Trustees. Thank you very much. We have a hard-working cabinet. I want to thank you. If you can stand and be acknowledged, appreciate it. And I always come close to forgetting someone, but I leave the best for last. And we have, representing the Retirees Association today. If you can please stand, Dr. Guyton. We appreciate all that you do. I can hear my deans whispering a little too loudly. You didn't call the dean, so let me make sure my deans can stand and be acknowledged. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we will be at the new Smithsonian African American Museum for History and Culture. I think it's a fitting place for us to celebrate our Charter Day celebrations. We'll have a couple of panels. We'll have entertainment, all by Howard folks, and we have access to the entire museum. I hope to see as many of you there tonight. Tomorrow night, we'll celebrate our Charter Day dinner at the Washington Hilton. I also look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible as well. So please join us for the singing of the Alma Mater.
When the cold bites your bones and gets in your heart, it can make you feel hopeless, and fear will come to steal your sun and make it dark. But don't believe you're lonely. We've all had that moment when our shoulders sink and we sit back and think we could just run. But we're not born to chase the fading light. We're not born to fall and lose the fight. Never letting go. I'm asking you to lift me higher than I ever been. Hold your breath and say you're gonna come with me. We were born to follow the light that never fails. You're scared to fight, scared to climb, afraid to die. But I can be your courage and help you see that you've already won this. We all have that moment when our head hangs low. We question if we should go or turn back and run.